Hey everybody, Pete here with the River Kings. I've had a lot of requests for people wanting to see how I do my custom seat in the Prijon Yukon Expeditions. I got two awesome boats here. This red one is just a fantastic looking boat. It's in perfect condition. And this is River King Brian's new boat, and I pretty much got it outfitted. Everything's done except for the seat. And this boat, this blue one, is Chris's boat, another good looking boat. And it is all done. I'm about to deliver that to him tomorrow. But we're going to go ahead and put the River King Edition custom super deluxe seat package in this thing for Brian. So stay tuned and I'll show you how to do it. All right, let's start with the seat pad. The first thing you want to do is get a Wilderness Systems Phase 3 seat pad. And I got a couple places I'll look for this. The two websites I like are Tom's Top Kayaker and ACK, Austin Canoe and Kayak. And depending on availability, you can get most everything you need for just about any kayak off one or both of those two sites. Lately, it was Tom's Top Kayaker that had all the stuff. But either one of those outfits will get you where you need to go most of the time. So that's the Phase 3 seat pad from Wilderness Systems. And it comes with these little push tree rivets. And if you can see that, we'll use those, at least two of them. Those will be important later. And I'm going to unwrap this and show you how to stencil out and get the trash can ready. So what you're going to want to do is place the seat pad against the trash can, and with the Sharpie, stencil around the outside edges. So when you remove it, you want to take off about 1/2 inch and use your jigsaw and just cut that shape out minus 1/2 inch from the outside edge. And that will allow that seat pad to fit up in this little cavity there. And you want to be sure where these two holes are in the back, you want to be sure you come about 1 inch or 1.5 inches further than that hole, because that's what you're going to use to fasten this to the seat pan that's in the kayak. So when I was doing Chris's boat, I traced it and cut it out, and then I actually traced the cutout 3 more times so I can get 3 seat pads out of a trash can. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this now. All right, quick side note, I do drill a small hole there. That's to allow me to get the jigsaw started. That's what you're after. Sorry guys, I'm coming in and out of the shade because it is so hot that the corn on the ears of corn up the road were popping into popcorn. So at this point, I'm gonna take my file and take all the burrs, sharp points off. All right, so now what you have is this little seat frame that fits into this little flap on the underside of the seat pad itself. And what you're gonna wanna do, if you want the leg lifters, is make you some leg lifter strap holes. You want to do about the same thing on either side, and it's not rocket science, just try to get it the same. You can measure all this out if you like, if that'll help you, but we'll just cut those out, and then your leg lifters will run in there and kind of support the seat pad. This is plenty tough. I've had mine, like I say, for thousands of miles, and they're not tearing, they're not having any issues there. Just want to pre-drill your hole to get it started, and those come right out with the jigsaw. All right, it got a little too ambitious and a little too quick, so before I cut, I double-checked. You want the top of these slots to be below this little drink holder cutout. You don't want the strap coming across there. All right, so you got it pretty much like that. Next thing you want to do is make sure these are securely forward. Flip that thing over and mark these 2 little holes, which will be where our little rivets go. And just again, I've got this fingers pushing the frame up into the seat pad as far as you can get it. You don't want that to be slack. Get those holes just right. Then you're going to want to drill these two holes out with a 1/4 inch drill bit, which I'm using because that's the size rivets that were sent with mine. Double check to make sure that's the right size for your push tree rivets. Well, our holes match up. Success. Another note is if you don't want to mess with the trash can, which cost about $30, and I can get 4 of these seat frames out of one trash can, you can buy the seat frame from one of the websites made by Wilderness Systems. It'll take a little bit of the work out. If you're doing just one seat, it's going to be a wash. You know, it's going to be 30 bucks either way. It might make sense to go ahead and buy that seat frame. I do a lot of these seats. I do one for basically everybody that I know that has one of these. I've done their seat upgrade. And this is probably the 12th or 13th seat I've done. So for us, it just makes a lot more sense to, it's 4 times cheaper to do the trash can. So we got our seat pad in place here. You roughly want the top of your seat pad, when pushed down, to be about 1/4 to 1/2 inch below this little seat pan rim. So get it to where it pushes down to where about you want it. Be sure it's centered left and right. There's nothing more annoying than paddling in a boat when you know your seat pan is not lined up correctly. So that looks about right. Push down there, double check it, make sure everything's the way you want it. And when it is, go ahead and mark those holes for you to drill for your rivets. At this point, I'd like to offer a warning to anyone about to attempt what I'm doing. The drill bit goes through plastic very quickly. All plastic. It'll go through the seat pan. It'll also go through the bottom of your kayak. If you do not trust yourself to do this without drilling a hole in the bottom of the kayak, which is under the seat pan, then I suggest taking the seat out, or maybe placing a little small sheet of metal between the seat and the hull. You don't want to drill the bottom of your kayak here. So I don't push down. I kind of lock my hands, and as I'm drilling, as soon as it breaks contact, you got to release and pull back because it'll want to pull on through. Don't drill the bottom of your kayak out. Just through. Brian, I know you were watching. No red pieces of plastic came out of that drill bit, so you're safe. Now there's going to be a space in between the seat pan and the bottom of the kayak. So if I push down, I got about that far. So that's a lot on this particular kayak. Some seat pans are going to be different. You just want to be sure you have room underneath for the push tree rivet. As you push that down in there, I still got about 3/4 of an inch of space. If that was less, we would want to cut off some of the rivet so it wouldn't push down on the bottom of the kayak, which in turn would push the rivet back out of the seat pan. So now just that easy, it's in place. I got my rivets pushed in. The only thing we need to do now is get some 3M spray and spray the pad and the seat, let it set up, and then it'll be contact cemented in place, and that's not going anywhere. Now you just want that to tack up a little bit. When you place it down, it's going to be there forever. I think we're about ready. There you go. The seat pad is in place. Now we got to fix this guy. So the way this seat back works from the factory is you got this rope kind of running along through the back, and the way to tighten or loosen the seat is to pull this cleat out pull the seat. When you pull the rope, it pulls the seat forward. If you lean back, the rope can pull through. So you basically pull it where you want and then pull that up into the cleat and it'll hold it. We won't really be using any of that system. The seat back will pretty much be a kind of a one position as far as forward and back, and you're gonna make that off your body style. And you're not really gonna need the forward and back adjustment. Basically, when these kayak manufacturers create a seat for one of their boats, they have to make something that's gonna work for every single paddler out there. And what happens sometimes is they get, people get sold on the ability to adjust a seat up, down, forward, back, you know, relax, recline it, sit up for more aggressive stuff. But basically, if you create a seat for yourself, there's really no need for adjustment. And you'll have to experience that to understand it. But normally what you'll find in these boats is either you're not comfortable, so you start adjusting the seat, or after a time you'll find that spot that you prefer and you stop adjusting the seat because you found the place that's good for you. With this seat, the way I'm gonna do it for me and the guys, and I've never had anyone complain about it, is that it'll be done in such a way that it's so comfortable you don't need the adjustment. It's just perfect. The first step is going to be getting this seat back out. Of course, it just pops out of the little indents there for that aluminum stock to go in. And then this here is just a knot, just an overhand knot with a washer. You're going to want to get, I'll have to put the camera down, but you want to get a Gerber tool and you can get that apart and just pull that string out and leave it intact. And we'll take this out and we'll reattach this whole system once the new seat back is in. All right, so about 20 seconds with the Gerber, I've got that overhand knot out. I'm gonna pull that washer out and just set it in the seat. We'll use that later. Pull that right on through the hole, and we may need to drill that out just a bit to get that back through there. Pull this out of the seat pad, and this thing, I cannot tell you, well I can, I've got about 13 of these sitting in a box over there. You'll probably just never use it again. This is actually a nicer one. So this is the style I run into most on these seat backs, and it's basically just a hard foam. It's got a little 1-inch webbing strap with a couple D-rings on the ends, but that's just terribly uncomfortable right here, you can tell. That's just not gonna do it. This wouldn't be too bad, but it's not gonna be as good as what I'm about to do. All right guys, the easy part's done. Now we have to create this mini cell foam with aluminum frame custom seat back here. And I've done it once and I liked it so much the way I did it that I've just kept copying this stencil every time. And you see here I have a 12-inch by 48-inch piece of mini cell foam. I think I bought that one again off of Tom's Top Kayaker to do this project with. But I've traced the design out onto the foam of the seat pad from Nana. So that's been the kind of the template every time. And this is 3 inches thick. You want the 3-inch by 12-inch by 48 to do 3. It's going to be about 14 inches across to do one. So if you're going to do one seat, unfortunately, you need to buy the 3-inch by 1 foot by 2 foot. So I really didn't design it to get the most out of the foam blocks that are available. I designed it to be comfortable and actually do what I wanted to do and just feel great on the water. So a little bit of waste in that, the way the foam blocks normally come, but this will be well worth it once you get on the water. Now, the foam cuts very easily. I'll just show you. If you just run that through there, I mean, it'll cut it. So I normally just use, I've got a Sawzall blade, always got a Sawzall blade laying around. If you have a real saw that's gonna be the thin curve without any kind of frame getting in the way, because you're gonna need to go all through there. So like a coping saw wouldn't work. And it needs to be kind of a thin blade so you can make the curvatures. And there's probably 1,000 different ways to cut this, but it cuts so easy, I just grab a Sawzall blade and do that by hand. All right, so make sure to keep your blade from getting crooked. You don't want any kind of crazy cuts. And there we have it. So I've got about 4 inches from the outside to the end of the taper, about 6 inches in the middle, and about another 4 inches from the outside to the taper. And what I mean is, I come in 4 inches, and I'm cutting that contour off, so looking down from the top, it'll fit inside the cockpit nicely. And the reason I do that contour is so when you put it in there, the seat back kind of fits the contour of the boat on the cockpit rim there. So we'll start by marking that back side taper. So that's 4 inches. I'll come over here and do 4 inches. And you're going to want to kind of square that up. On the sides, you're going to want to leave a good inch without messing with it. So we're starting from the top of the taper. We're come to that point. And this is where you find out how artistic you are and how geometrically minded you are. Just kind of hand draw in something to give you a guide or a reference for when you start to cut this thing. All right, so that's going to give me the taper for the cockpit rim, and this is the back side of the seat. And that should all make sense, and again, we'll just use the Sawzall blade. If you have another way of cutting it, you know, there's no wrong answer here. So I've marked it. You can kind of see the trace line. There's the back. We're cutting this little triangle portion out on both sides. You want to keep the line going vertical and just watch your blade as you come around that line to be sure you're kind of on track. There, just that easy. And we'll clean all this up with a belt sander in a little bit. So you just want about a 1-inch rim and take that contour off. That looks pretty good. Do the other side real quick. And there we have it. Now all we got to do is shape the inside. So as we shape the inside, we're going to start at that corner, and we're going to end up taking about 1 inch out of the center on the bottom. Got about 1 inch taken out of the bottom. Goes from corner to corner, and that's what you're looking for on the bottom. And then on the top, we're actually going to cut out about 1 3/4 inches out of it, and start at that corner again, and just kind of draw your lines to make it match up. And we'll get all that material out of this thing with the belt sander and or a grinder, depending on what's easier for you. Part can get to be a little bit art, and you can kind of see in my template I usually stay back a little bit off of it so that to the individual paddler we can make finer adjustments later. So that's basically the shape of it. Not a whole lot to it, and this thing is magic. And I've got a little more lumbar, and that way this angles it provides lumbar. It's a nice squishy foam. So all I need to do now is sand off my edges, get all this ugly out of it, and just basically pretty it up a little bit, and then we're ready to put the frame together. Alright guys, so that's basically the finished seat. I'm going to sand it a little more to get a couple of the edges off. But I don't really go to town on it until I get, like in this case, Brian in the boat, and let's go paddle in the river right down the road here. Just paddle out in circles for about 30 minutes or an hour. And if you find something about the seat you don't like, we can fix it. But I try not to take too much out of the foam, because you can't put it back in as easy as you can take it out. So just, it's like dentistry, a little bit at a time. Kind of start shaping it, go test it, see if it feels good. If you need to take a little more out in a certain area, you go do that, and eventually you'll have it perfect. All right, so I got a little trick. This is the 1/8 inch by 1 inch aluminum stock you can get at your home improvement store. And this is going to make up the frame for the seat, and at least in the Yukon and several other boats I've done. You can get this worked into the seat pan. And let me show you basically what it looks like. The best way to cut it is actually with bolt cutters. So pretend this is an extra piece, so just pretend that's the length you needed. You push it in one side, flip it, and then basically you got it cut. That's a lot easier than, you know, trying to saw a bunch of pieces. And I made a bunch of these for all the seats I got to make. And this is my template. This is what you're going to need, and I'll go over the measurements of these. So just to go over, I'm going to lock this into my vise, and I don't even have this thing attached to the table, so I got to be a little bit careful. So there, I got my stock locked into the vise. I'm just going to sand it and then hit it with the belt sander if it needs it, and or just file the edges. It's real easy to work with, soft metal. Get that done first until it looks like this. All right, I got them ground down, ready for action. So I basically just want to put my template up there and mark it to the angle on both sides. I need another finger for this. There, that'll work. All right, so I'll go ahead and double that over to this one. So I have the exact same thing twice. Now we got to bend the angles in there. And so as I bang it a little bit, I'll come and check. I need just a little more. That's pretty good. I think I'll just go with that. Now, an important measurement in this project is going to be from the outside edge of that to the outside edge of this. And that's going to determine the width of the frame as it fits into this seat pan. I already happen to know from all the other seats I've done that that is 6 7/8 of an inch. So here's my two pieces, 10 inches, 2 inches, 30 degrees, 4 inches up, 45 degrees. That's the uprights for the frame. For the lateral pieces, you're going to need the bottom piece to be 6 1/2. The top piece is going to be 5 3/4. So let me grind those off, and then we'll get to assembling the frame here. So coming about 1 1/4 inches from the back edge up, we need to make a mark across, and then centered up in the seat, we need to make 2 marks at 6 1/2 inches apart. All right, so we're getting back into the art side of things here. I've got 6 1/2 inches apart, those 2 marks, 1 1/4 down from the back edge of the seat, and then coming up the back is 3 1/2 to that mark, and those 2 marks are 5 1/2 apart, and that works out to be about where the corners of that contour that we cut out is. And what you're going to want to do is drive a Sawzall blade through that, starting there and protruding there on both sides. And it's going to be a little artsy. You're going to kind of have to hit it kind of by feel, but that's what you're shooting for. You enter there outside of the blade on that mark, and you come out here even with that line outside of the blade on that mark. And let's see if we can do it. Pretty close. All right, so I've got my Sawzall blade entering right there on the mark, coming out. I missed it by 1/8 of an inch, but Brian's going to have to live with it. It's close enough. So once you get that, you don't want to saw further to the outside, so you just remove that blade reverse the blade, put the teeth to the inside, and you can cut yourself just a little bit more, you know, slot to get through there. And then repeat it on this side. I just completed the other side. You can see it's still about 1/8 off, but that's really not consequential. So this is going to be just about perfect for what we're trying to do here. All right, so now that you got that, you got to feed these aluminum pieces up through that, and you want to put the 2-inch side into the slot first. And it should feed in there not too bad. Just kind of work it nice and slow. You just don't want to rip the foam. So that's perfect. We'll get the other one in there as well. There. So we basically have the uprights in the seat back. Now we're going to measure up from the bottom edge to the top, get it exactly the same on both sides, and then attach the bottom horizontal strut. Once we get that, we're going to attach the top one. So just want to make sure you got the same distance up. So you don't want a crooked seat. Got that. So now I've measured and I have the same distance there. I want to put a line so that when I rivet those in place, I'll know they're staying exactly where I want them to be. At this point, you'll also want to measure to make sure you got 6 7/8, and that is 6 7/8. You can see that. That's coming out just right. Since the rivets I'm using to attach this are 3/16 rivets, I've got a 3/16 drill bit. You line your strut up, oops, and then drill through both pieces. On this project, I'm using these rivets. So you want to be sure that the front of the seat has the smooth side of the rivet. You can also use small bolts and lock washers, but the rivets are just as easy and a lot faster. All right, we've got the bottom riveted together. Now we just need to do the same thing at the top. All right, so we got all 4 rivets in place, and that does in fact measure 6 7/8 right on the nose. All I need to do now is put a pad eye there that'll hold the bungee that tensions the seat and the piece of rope that runs through there so that this never gets lost in transit or during the unexpected occurrence of a swim. But I'm sure that would never happen. So I have my pad eye. I just put it somewhere in the middle. A little bit of an angle, as much as I can stand. Put my 2 marks on there. Drill that, rivet those in, and we'll attach this thing to the boat. So now I've just got some 3/16 inch bungee, and I've got probably about a 2-foot piece. Burn the ends off real quick because I hate a fraying rope or a fraying bungee cord. Basically, we're going to make a loop that's going to stay like that we'll use to tension this to a hook on the bottom of the seat. So as you see on the bottom of the Prijon Yukon seat pan, there is a little plastic hook that would just perfectly grab a 3/16 inch bungee, and that'll go through the pad eye and hook onto that hook when you want to engage it. Also running through this pad eye will be that rope that we messed with earlier, and that's what permanently attaches the seat to the boat in case you swim or while you're traveling you don't lose that seat back. Oh yeah, it is a thing of beauty. So the seat back is in place, and I'm going to kind of pull the tension on the bungee, and that's about right there. So that's going to be my loop. I'll measure that, then tie that bungee into a loop. And I usually like to do a fisherman knot or a surgeon's knot, whatever you want to call it. I think this is actually the fisherman's knot. Just basically tie that on one side, then tie it again on the other. 2 loops running through, and that's probably a terrible video of how to tie a knot. But that'll hold pretty well. And that's my 6-inch loop. So I'll just cut the excess off and we'll be in business. Let's go see how that looks. Alright, put the seat in place and then pull our bungee down in there. Seat back in place. Woo, looks good. Now I just feed this rope through the pad eye and back through this. If it'll go quickly, yes. I think we're in luck. Maybe. Maybe not. Got it. So I just want to give myself a little extra room. Put my washer back on there. Tie the overhand knot that was holding it. Pull it tight and then tighten up this side. And we are done with the seat back. So there is your final product, guys. That's your special edition River King Supreme custom 100% guaranteed comfortable seat back. Now there's only one thing left to do. Try it out. Ooh, that's nice. You know, sure is a pretty kayak. The longer I have this boat and the longer I play with it, the more I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll just give Brian his money back. All right, guys, so that's your final product for the River King's custom seat back modification. So this will work on all kinds of different kayaks, not just Yukons, but this one especially for the Yukons. That's kind of what you need to get it comfortable. And I can sit all day in that seat and no issues whatsoever. I hope Brian understands I may end up keeping this boat. It's too good looking of a boat to let go. Don't y'all agree? I mean, Brian hasn't even named it yet. So really, technically, is it even his if he hasn't named it?